I'd like to ask the presenters to join us up front. And at this point, I'd like to turn the tables and let's ask some questions, because I'm sure after hearing those success stories, many of you would like to ponder the experts. Questions? Comments?
Give us one, Phil.
Then I'm going to start.
Chris has got it.
Yes, okay, great. Chris Hughes, Baker Concrete.
Yeah, Chris Hughes.
A pro member, by the way.
Yeah. It's not really a question. I'm going to pile on this collaboration thing. I actually did the first round of detailing on the first parking garage Kerry showed. And we had, I don't know how many different beams, and we were using Cunningham system steel tubs. And I bet it was 13, 14, 15. And by the time we were done, Kerry did his thing, his crew did his thing, came back and we talked again. I think we had 2 sizes of beam girder tubs in that thing. And they could go anywhere. Didn't matter which. You could go straight up, you could go over a bay, you could go back a bay. It didn't matter where it was so easy cycling the material. And that was just a few conversations. I don't think that was a huge monumental task to get everybody in the room. Maybe a task to get everybody in the room, but once it started, it was an easy conversation to get done. And thanks for being a part of that. And it worked. That's my point. Is it worked.
This thing on?
Tap between the different windows.
This one right here.
Just a quick comment. You can hear me. Yeah, Chris, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, you know, that is not difficult to do. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm glad to hear the feedback, but I'm always shocked at how many designs we see doing peer reviews and things with parking structures or otherwise where for no good reason you might have, I think you mentioned 13 different beam types or lengths. And, you know, maybe 60% of the job is all typical, but the other 40% is just one-off after one-off. And it just takes a little more effort to sit down and you know, work with the builder and make the effort to understand the forming system so you understand the nuances of how it works. And you can, I think we saved, again, I'm not going to quote numbers, but I know it was a big, big number, the before and after in terms of cost savings and schedule savings.
So I have a question. I'm convinced, I listened to 5 experts, I'm convinced that collaborative design has tremendous benefits, not only to the owner, but to the contractor and the designer. How can the average project get to that success? How can they reach collaboration in design? Who wants to take that?
I'll throw an idea out. I think that the model Chad, there he is right here. Yeah. The project Chad showed us is the template for where Pro needs to head. I think we need to promote the concept of IPD, and I'm sure there are a lot of variations on that. I've been through only a couple of those in my career, but to the extent that I have experienced IPD, it's exactly what we're trying to do with Pro, to encourage collaboration upfront, early, and often, and to get people out of their silos so that everybody is focused on building a good project on time and on budget, instead of just providing the windows or pouring concrete or providing rebar, and that's all I care about because that's what my contract says. I provide rebar and I'm out of here. That's what we have to get out of. If instead of just providing the rebar or installing the glass or putting the sprinkler system in, you're motivated to think about the entire project and work as a team together and care about the other guy, which is what an IPD contract does, look at the great things that happen. Look at the great things that happen. And you end up friends. You end up shaking hands instead of throwing punches at the end of the job. So now, you know, how do we get there? It's going to take a while. It's
Yeah.
going to take a while.
So Jeff, comment from your perspective. You know, you had a fabulous job. Why doesn't every project unfold like that?
I think a lot of it is probably owners are hesitant to make early commitments. I think they think maybe the mentality is that they can get a better product if they have a whole bunch of different trades involved and contractors involved that beat each other up all the way through the process till the very final 100% CD set that they award on. It's kind of the way that it's been for years and years, it seems like, and I think some folks still look at it that way, but it's certainly not the most efficient way to do it.
Other question? Go ahead. If not, I have three more.
I wanted to ask how you deal with like conflict resolution. So obviously their models are supposed to force collaboration, but obviously everyone's different. So how do you deal with those people or groups that are just not collaborating?
Well, we had, unfortunately, we did have some of that we discovered early on the project, and the person was replaced. You know, you can't play the key role unless you're on board. You got to be part of the team. And without having the right mindset, it's impossible for you to do that. That person, very successful outside of this environment, but in this environment, it takes that kind of mindset.
But back to that, Chad, was there a termination clause in your agreement that said you either play fair or you're out?
Yeah, there were a lot of clauses that basically you saw the core group. The core group would make a decision to have somebody removed from the team.
So the core team would decide whether you stayed or went?
I feel very fortunate that we had the team that we had because, I mean, everyone showed up with everything that they could give. You know, we just had a couple of bumps and one person that was replaced, but for the most part, I feel like we were very fortunate there. I don't have anything else to compare it to, but I certainly welcome another chance to go about it and do the same thing. But I feel like. But to answer your question, yes, the core team would make that decision.
Chris, I see you have a question.
I just wanted to, I guess, piggyback on what Chad said with an experience that I had. I was selected as the program director and project manager for a $1.3 billion semiconductor plant in Gresham, Oregon in 1995. We did a design build. We didn't know what IPD was and all that kind of thing. And we didn't know what pull planning was. I think we had a different name for it. But as we got into this project, I had a collaboration meeting every morning with the foreman. And the idea was we need to be there. What do you need to do for me so that I can put my stuff in place after you? And we had a big whiteboard. We set all these activities on, and the foreman really ran it. And it got so, I guess, collaborative, if you will, that I just kind of sat back and didn't do anything but watch the show as they figured stuff out. I can't do that because I need this. Well, how about that? And it was just really fun. And I'm wondering if you had that same kind of experience there with the way people work together. I mean, I'd never seen anything like that at the time.
Yes, we definitely did have that experience, and because you have respect for the other people in the room, that those turnovers, when you make a commitment to the contractor that's coming after you to turn the area of work over and you're going to be done, you do not want to be the person that didn't live up to their commitment. I mean, it's like the mindset goes from traditionally, I've got to make sure that my company's protected, to in this mindset, I don't want to let the team down. And in those planning sessions, when you start doing the make work ready plan or the 6-week look ahead plan, part of that is having a constraint log where you're identifying anything that could get in the way of being able to live up to that schedule and be able to meet that schedule. And so just the act of identifying those items and having someone assigned, a person, not a company, a person assigned to solving that problem or delivering that information, and a commitment from them on when that's going to happen, and everyone planning around that. So it's like a long-running list, but I thought that was one of the most effective things about meetings on an IPD project, was that you were always addressing, someone had that on their shoulders. Every time there was a constraint or a potential issue, somebody had a responsibility to deliver that, to keep it from delaying the job.
Before I get to you, a quick question for you, Lyle, on reinforcing productivity. In your 40 years of no progress, what could we hope to see in the future from productivity gains in reinforcing?
There's a huge benefit in productivity gains, and even, for example, a typical rebar story is something went wrong on the job site and we have to fix it, right? So you either call the shop for new steel, or typically the iron workers will grab steel that is on the job and fix it and make it work. And really, it's a cascading inefficiency that happens on a job site. But if you have the ability to identify these sources of error up front, and even fabricate inside of a shop where things can be inspected in a shop and not built in the field, it takes a lot of that away. And the potential upside is, I think, a substantial savings in material on waste. It's going to be a much more lean and efficient process, because we're not wasting all this steel that has to be fixed on the job site. We're figuring stuff out early so that that doesn't happen, including MEP and penetrations and where the formwork's going to be. And it's a big savings on waste, and a big savings in efficiency and schedule. We're working in a system now that is really set up to be confrontational. These guys should be my best friends, but a lot of job sites, we end up like this, because he wants us to jump on form work and we're saying it's not ready yet. He doesn't trust us to get it done as fast as we think we're going to do it, so he wants us there, and we're working inefficiently. This kind of, the opportunity to be ahead and get the work built ahead so that he doesn't have to worry about how efficient I'm going to be. I'm going to be very efficient. It's just mutual trust at a level that we're going to see in the future. It's going to happen. This is the way it's going to be done. But we don't see it yet. Putting numbers on it, it's hard to say, but it's going to be
Substantial gain.
impressive.
Question?
Well, one more comment on that. Joe Fersley and I from my office went down to watch Lyle's trial run of that Micron Technology steel erection that I think he showed the video of. I'm not sure where that video was taken, but we watched, I think it was 13 tons placed in about 20 minutes or less. 15, 20 minutes, 13 tons with two guys. And one of the guys was just sort of the safety guy. So he had 13 tons of rebar placed with two guys in 20 minutes. And we watched it. We got videos of it. It's incredible. What they're doing is incredible, and it can be adopted in almost any project if you can just create the teamwork between the engineer and the fabricator. Just that simple. Just that simple.
Thanks,
One
Kerry.
more comment. I want to make a comment about something Jeff
Okay.
did too, real quickly. I thought Jeff made a really interesting point in his Arizona project, where SECO essentially saved the engineer and everybody else from what could have been massive mistakes in estimating of rebar and materials, and they all end, you end with a slight overage, thanks to your estimating prowess, right? But the engineer's estimates were low, so SECO raised them up, and then they went higher and higher and higher, and SECO ended up pretty much at the same level of what the engineer said he would be. I thought that was really interesting, because in the absence of SECO's input early and being part of that team, a project like that could end up in real trouble with a dogfight later.
Thank you, Kerry. Question?
Yeah, two questions for Lyle and Eugene on the modular rebar. One is in a typical project procurement process, design, bid, build, how early does the team or the contractor have to decide we're going modular? And then secondly, and I'm not sure from your perspective, if you got visibility on cost comparison of the whole package, crane, install, prefab, versus, tie in place, traditional versus the modular, Obviously, I think the big savings is in the schedule, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But putting that aside, just in direct cost, how does that compare?
You have more.
Okay, I have the mic. So, the savings in schedule really accrue to the job site because we're still putting in the labor hours, only we're putting them in the shop instead of in the field. And, there are some additional costs that take to do that as opposed to traditional, including, just all the modeling and the collaboration that has to be done to make this work. That will add a little bit to the cost. We're trying to get that figured out exactly how much. I do think that doing it in a shop does make it a target for being more and more efficient and improving efficiency so that it's far more likely to get better and better in an off-site environment than it is in the job site. And so we're looking forward to getting some more work under our belt and getting that cost dialed in, right? As far as your other question and lead time goes, ideally, we'd like to be collaborating in a model at the time that the IFC model comes out so that we're working with all the other trades and figuring this stuff out at that point, whenever that is. As far as standard production versus what would be required for modular, it's not vastly more time. Maybe something like 8 weeks as opposed to 4 weeks, something like that. It's going to vary job by job, but it's not a ton more time. But the main reason we need that time is to do the collaboration, to get involved in the model and have the other partners that we're working with involved so that we can figure this out together. We don't want to be in a silo doing this and having to adjust it on the site. It doesn't make sense. So it's the collaboration that really needs the time more than the fabrication.
And I think if you consider the tools available, as opposed to doing a traditional submittal process, you're going to eliminate that additional time anyway. So there's benefits up front as well as benefits on the job site. So in the overall scheme, I still think you win on time.
Well, in closing, I want to thank our presenters. If nothing else, I'm leaving stimulated and excited, knowing that we can make this industry more successful and create greater value for our owners. So let's thank our presenters.